Texas. We bring you the history of Grand Prairie of the past and also get to talk a little bit about what these people are doing in Grand Prairie today. This is our history tape number 75, and we're very delighted today to bring some longtime residents of Grand Prairie, Texas, Mr. and Mrs. D.A. Green. And Jack Green, we want to welcome you to the show today, young man.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And Ruby, how wonderful to have you and your husband with us today to bring back memories.
Thank you.
All right.
It's wonderful.
It's wonderful to be here today.
It is.
All right. Now, D.A. Jack Green, we'd like for you to look out into your camera and help us establish the genealogy of the Greens. Tell us your parents' name, including your mother's maiden name, and possibly where they migrated from in the United States as they came toward Texas, if they did. And if they didn't, tell us how you got to Texas, young man. Would you look out and do that for us?
I'll see if I can do that.
All righty.
My father's name was Daniel Alexander Green.
All right.
My mother was Bertha Elva Kitley, K-I-T-T-L-E-Y.
H-I-T-T-L-E.
K-I-T-T-L-E-Y.
K-I-T-T-L-E-Y. And it's Bertha. Okay.
Bertha Elva.
Okay. I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about your parents and how many children they had.
Well, I'm the oldest of 9 in my family.
The oldest of 9 children. Okay.
And my mother, I believe her family had 9 and 8. And my father had 4 sisters and 1 brother, 5.
All right. Now, where was your family located?
My family, you mean here in Texas?
Where you were born?
I was born in Haskell, Texas, in Haskell County.
All right.
And, well, I don't know. What else do you need there?
All right. You were born in Haskell, Texas, and your dad did what for a living in Haskell, Texas?
No, he was a farmer.
He was a farmer?
Yes.
All right. Now tell me about your mother. Was she a homemaker and did help him on the farm and all the good stuff?
Yes, she was a homemaker and did some work on the farm, not too much.
All right. Now, how about you kids? What did y'all do on the farm?
Everything is to be done.
All right. And how long did y'all live out at the Haskell area?
Well, my father died 8 miles from Haskell. He stayed there a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, my mother passed away 2 years before he did. But Ruby and I left the area in 1940 and went to South Texas.
All right. Now, you're still in Haskell, though, and did you go to school in Haskell, Texas?
No.
Tell us where you completed your grade school and et cetera.
I completed my grade school in Sagerton, Texas.
Give us that name again.
Sagerton.
Sagerton.
In Haskell County, yes. It's
all right.
10 miles from Haskell.
All right.
And finished high school in Lubbock, Texas.
All right. And then what took you to Lubbock, Texas? Did your dad move there, or were you on a school bus going into Lubbock?
No, Dad left the farm in around Sagerton and went to Lubbock to work in 1923.
Okay.
And he bought a farm at Tahoka, Texas, part of the T-Bar Ranch, as it was broken up for farmland. Well, he bought a section of that.
Oh, good.
And we lived there through 1923 and 1924. He sold the farm and moved into Lubbock and started working with Calhoun Brothers contractors there.
Oh, good. That's wonderful. And you finished school in Lubbock, Texas. And how did you meet Miss Ruby?
Well,
was she out in Lubbock, Texas?
No, we met her in Stanford in 1927, I guess. I was working there and had finished school. Of course, I was working in a bakery there. And I had a party one night where I met her, and it took.
That's good. All right, now before we get to Ruby and ask her about her genealogy, how were you going to give us your birth date by any chance?
Well, I wouldn't think of it.
You wouldn't think that? You don't want anyone to know that you're over 39, right?
I'm 40.
You're
I done
40.
passed my 39th. Yeah, I was born October the 19th, 1908.
1908, that was a good year, wasn't it?
I guess it was.
All
They said
right.
it snowed, rained, hail, and everything else that year.
That year. All right, we're going to let you rest for a minute and come back to you in a few minutes,
All right.
Jack Green, if we could. All right, Ruby, tell us about Ruby and your genealogy, your mother and dad's name, and so we can get that into history.
My mother was 14 years old and my dad was 21, and they both lived at Cross Plains, Texas, in Callahan County.
Oh, Callahan.
And at that age, they run away and got married. And they went to what was called the Creek Nation in Oklahoma. And they didn't come back to Texas. I was 5 years old whenever they came back to Texas. And we came back in 2 covered wagons. We crossed the Red River on a ferry boat. I remember very well my father standing between the horses to quiet them, and they were kind of nervous. The ferry boat was rocking, the river was up some. And then we settled 8 miles east of Stanford, and I lived there with my father in 1919, we knew that he was not well, but he was a real big, strong man, and he just kept on going. But by 1921, we discovered he had diabetes, and there was nothing they could do for it then. So we had to sell out. My dad was a farmer, and we sold everything we had, moved into town, and my father passed away in 1923. I was 13 years old.
All right, now, we need your mother's full name, including her maiden name. Let's get that.
My mother's full name was Retta Evelyn Peavy Muncie.
And it's P.D.?
Peavy.
Peavy.
P-W-E-V-Y.
P-E-E-V-Y, and that's M-O-N-S-E-Y?
Right.
All right. And your dad's full name?
John Lester Muncie. He was a twin.
All right. Okay, and they married in West Texas, and then
They married at Baird, Texas.
at Baird, Texas.
And they just went right on into Oklahoma. It was called the Territory then. And my father was a great baseball player. He actually played with a team out of Fort Worth at one time, but I really don't remember much about that. But
The Fort Worth Cats.
yes, he really loved baseball. And I know one time my mother told me they went to Lawton, Oklahoma to baseball. It was a big game, and during the time, or a little before they had the game, they had captured Geronimo, the big outlaw, and so he saw my mother, and if I do say so, my mother was a beautiful lady, and he wanted to talk to her, and so my dad took her over to, they had him in just a great big iron, the way I understand it, sort of a, well, he was confined anyway, and so he talked to her, and I never will forget what she said. He told her he thought her hair was pretty. My mother's hair was real black, but he said, my one wish is to scaff a red-headed woman before I die. That's
what Geronimo said.
That's what Geronimo said.
To your mother.
And to my mother. And so anyway, after we came back to Texas, and I was, when my father died, I was the oldest one at home. There were 5 children in our family, but my oldest sister, she died at birth. And then I have a sister, Willie Mae Fulbright, that lives here in Grand Prairie.
All right.
And I had 2 brothers, but they both passed away, Ivan Muncie and J.R. Muncie. My youngest brother was treasurer of Avion Village when he died. And my oldest brother owned a machine shop in Irving and was doing quite well, but he died of cancer of the lungs.
I see. Now, I'd like to know where Ruby was born.
I was born in Dublin, Texas.
Dublin, Texas.
You know, I think we must have came back before I was born, but we didn't stay. We went back to Oklahoma. I've looked and tried to get that all straight, but I'm sure that we did because that's where I was born.
All right, you gonna give us your birth date?
I was born March the 22nd, 1910.
Wonderful. All right, now we have everything documented about you, don't
Right.
we?
She's still 39.
And she's still 39, the same age as D.A. All right. Now, I'd like to know, D.A., what brought you all to Grand Prairie, Texas?
Well, that is a good story. I was working for the 19th Air Force Storage Depot in Waco, security, and I heard about North American Aviation.
Okay.
So I decided I'd try it, and I came up here. We got here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on September the 23rd, 1943. I went into the plant personnel office, and at 4:15 that afternoon I went to work. That's how fast it happened. So I worked all night. That was the first day at North American Aviation.
And you were a guard?
I was a guard at the 19th Air Force Storage Depot, yeah.
And what were you at North American Aviation then?
I was an engine mechanic.
You were an engine mechanic. Now, when we're talking about engine mechanic, what does that entail? What department? And what did you do?
Well, to begin with, I worked in the high bay area, installing engines, and when number 3, P-51, went on the line, I went outside with it to look after the run-up and to sell it to the Army or Navy, whichever one was going to buy
Or
it.
the Air Force?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I was lead man in charge of run-up out there for a couple of years until I left.
All right. When you came to Grand Prairie, Texas to go to work for North American Aviation, where did you live?
Lived in Waco.
You lived in Waco, Texas. And did you leave Ruby in Waco, Texas and come up without her, or did you bring her right on to Grand Prairie?
No, we drove right into Grand Prairie, and JR had found a small apartment, and incidentally it was very small too, out on Northwest 14th Street. And if I hadn't been working at night, I'd had to sleep out on the porch.
There just wasn't no
Northwest 19th Street. Oh, that is great.
14th, no, Northwest 14th.
Northwest 14th, and you moved on into Grand Prairie, Texas.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to get back to you a little bit more about your North American Aviation activities. Now, Ruby, when he brought you all the way from Waco up here to Grand Prairie, did you all have any children by this time?
Oh yes, we have 2 children.
All right, let's
And,
give us their full names. Would you do that?
Oh yes, the oldest is Betty Jo Green Micas.
All right.
Her last name is Micas now. And our son is named John Edward Green. He lives in Mount Pleasant, Texas, and he owns the only abstract and title company in Titus County. Done very well for himself. And
All right. Now you've given us the names of your 2 children. Let's start with John first and name his children, so we'll get your grandchildren and great-grandchildren and all that on the recording, please.
Okay. John's oldest child was a girl. Her name was Sharon Annette Green. And the second one's name was John Lynn Green, who's a doctor there now in Mount Pleasant.
All right.
And the baby girl's name was Carla Jo Green. She's a school teacher in Longview.
All right. And are either of those 3 grandchildren married that give you any great-grandchildren?
Yes, they did.
Do you think you can name any of those
I
for
can
me?
name
now?
them all.
All right. Let's go for it in John's side of the family.
All right. The oldest one is named Carol Lee Walker.
All right.
And Aaron Lynn Walker.
All right.
And Ben Franklin Walker.
Okay.
And then John's children, he only has one, a little boy named Jay Malone. And the youngest girl has a little girl, a little boy named Jordan Elizabeth and Jacob Alexander. Yeah.
Strand is their last
Yeah,
name.
yes.
All right.
That's Johnny's grandchildren. And
Now let's get back to Betty
Yeah.
Green Micas that lives here in Grand Prairie, Texas, and you tell us her husband's name because that's important to our genealogy too.
she's got a very wonderful husband. I tease him all the time, telling him he's the best son-in-law I have.
And the only one.
And that's what he tells me. But he's a very wonderful fellow.
All right.
Their oldest child is...
And you didn't give us his name.
Oh, I'm sorry. His name is E.J. Micas. He just has initials. He doesn't
right.
have a name. And him and Betty married when they were both 18 years old. And everyone just, they just worried so because they were so young. But for some reason, that's one thing I can say, I never worried 1 minute because I loved that boy from the minute I met him, and I still do.
All right, do they have children?
They have 3 children. And
Name them for us.
They have Karen Sue Micas Moore. She married Stanley Moore.
All right.
And the second one is Linda Carol Crawford.
All right.
And the third one is Bobby Wayne Micas.
All right, now let's go back down the line and name their children so we can get your great-grandchildren in there.
Karen has a little girl, 14 years old, named Cynthia Marie.
And where does she go to school?
She goes to Grand Prairie High now.
All right,
Yes.
as of September.
Yes.
Yes. All right, now let's get to Linda.
And then, Karen has a little boy now.
All right.
He was born January the 4th, and his name is, I call him WC all the time. They laugh. His name is William Clayton. Yeah.
William Clayton.
But we love Bill Hart so much, so he's Stan's best friend, so it tickles him to death because I call him WC. That's Bill's initials. But anyway, okay, Linda only has one child. Her name is Tina Michelle Crawford. Her father died when she was very, very young.
All right,
yeah.
and where is Tina now?
She's getting ready to go to the University of Texas at Arlington, but she's filling in out at LTV for someone while they're on vacation.
Beautiful young lady, isn't
Yes,
she?
she is. Very
All
smart
right.
little girl.
All right, now name us Bobby's,
Bobby has 2 lovely children.
his wife's name.
His wife's name is Catherine Young. We call her Kathy. I believe she does have a middle name.
All right, do they have any children?
They have 2 children. The little boy is the oldest. His name is Jason Wayne Micas. He was born on his father's birthday.
How splendid.
And the little girl's name is Lacey. Now, when you have 11 great-grandchildren, you got to make mistakes.
He asked you if you could name them all.
Lacey.
Lacey?
Yeah,
Lacey's her, what is her middle name?
I don't know.
Lacey Michelle.
All right,
I believe, yes.
we're going to go with Lacey,
Yes,
aren't we?
Yes, well, Lacey definitely.
I think you've all made almost 100 on all of this, many of your great-grandchildren.
Well, they're
really.
lovely children and easy to remember them all. And that is all the children they have, and they're just...
All right, now, I want you to get back and show on our film the picture of your mommy, Retta, who was just a splendid, splendid lady. If we can get our camera to focus in on this without getting a glare, it would be wonderful. Because Retta was really a stem winder here in Grand Prairie, Texas, and she was such a motivator, and she always encouraged me so much when I was growing up as a young matron.
She really was.
She was a lovely, lovely lady, and when we lost her to death, it was a real sad occasion for all of us.
She was 93 years old when she passed away.
Okay. Thank you, Ruby, for that. I'm going to get back to you in a few minutes and ask you what you were doing all the time. Mr. Green was out here working on the engines on the
I'd like to find out
P-51s.
about that too.
All right. Jack Green, working on the final assembly line at North American Aviation on P-51s, which was the hottest ship in the Air Force at the time, and a Pratt & Whitney engine and all this good stuff.
No, it didn't have
What did you do after you left the final assembly line?
Well, after I left the final assembly line, I went outside as a run-up man, as a lead man in charge of run-up.
Okay.
And I worked primarily with final inspection, getting the run-up put on the engines and working all the little
Squawks?
squawks off of it. And then I'd turn it over to the Air Force for the first flights. And then we did have some pre-flight work to do. They had a pre-flight crew out there, but a lot of times it'd fall back on me to do some of that. So I worked at that 2 years, and then I went to Love Field with the Modification Center.
Was that still with North American Aviation?
I left North American.
And what was the Modification Center? Was that under some other company?
That was under the auspices of the of Civil Service. It was supposed to have been, well, I don't remember now whether it was Douglas or Boeing.
That had the prime contract then?
Yeah, they had the prime contract.
I see.
It was remodeling and modifying aircraft for the Chinese or the Korean theater. Fly the Hump.
Okay.
They had to put what they call Tokyo tanks on them, and afterburners on the engines of some of them, and some of them they had to put superchargers on them. The rotary engines, they put superchargers on them.
How long did you work at that modification center?
I worked over there 2 years until they shut it down. When the Japanese quit fighting over there, well, they closed it down.
All right.
And I came back to Grand Prairie.
All right. Now, what did you do in Grand Prairie after that?
I opened up a garage, an 1800 block on East Main Street.
Okay.
And later on, I opened up the second one down at the 700 block on West Main.
Okay.
And then the old aircraft bug got me, and I sold out and went to work for Timco. That's when they opened up.
All right. And what'd you do for Timco?
Same thing I did in North American. I went out on the flat line.
All right.
And I ran engines, worked on engines, installed a few, and occasionally I'd have to make flights with pilots to write up the squawks that we'd have to work off of them when we came back.
Okay.
They called me a flight engineer, but it wasn't that. I was just a bug hunter.
All right. And
So,
then after you left Timco, what happened?
when I left Timco, I went in business for myself.
Okay.
Well, not at first either. I wound up in the hospital over in Dallas and wasn't able to hit the road, so Ruby and I managed our apartment complexes for about a year. And after that, I bought into the vending business, and we operated that until I retired.
Okay. Now, Ruby, he has mentioned the fact that you worked out of the home for a while there. Tell us your role. Were you always a homemaker up until that time?
Well, most of the time. I did a little bit of most. I worked for Ward's Drugstore a long time.
All right.
And I worked let's see, I worked for Higginbotham Bailey in Dallas quite several years. I never let my work interfere with our home. If I felt like I needed home, I come home. And at that time, our children were in high school, and I felt like I was needed home. In fact, my son told me one day, he said, "Mother, please don't go to work anymore." He said, "When I come home from school, I want you to be at home." I never did anymore. I stayed at home and cooked for all the high school kids. They loved my French fries.
All right. Now, did both of your children go to Grand Prairie High School?
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did. Were you ever in the PTA or any of those other kind of things?
Well,
or homeroom mother and all this good stuff?
Oh, yes, I've been homeroom mother, but I was never in PTA. I was kind of shy about things like that then. I wish I had have took more, but I was brought up out in West Texas, a little town, and we didn't have a lot of things out there that we did here.
All right, now how about church? You all go to church?
We go to Turnpike Church of Christ, I'm proud to say.
Okay.
And we love it very much.
Okay. I'm going to get back to DA. DA, we have about 3 more minutes only left on this interview.
Ooh, good.
So
Turn the fan on.
now that you have retired, what have you been doing since retirement?
Well, you know, when you never quit working after you retire.
That's
you
it.
start to work then. Primarily, well, I retired first in 1974, and that got to me pretty quickly, so I went and bought back in the vending business and started over, and I stayed with it till the middle of 1979, sold it out, intending fully to retire at that time. Then I was over at DFW one morning, and a guy hired me to do security work for American Airlines.
Wonderful.
And I had a crew out there for four and a half years, wasn't it?
4.5 years,
I had 30 inspectors out there for about 4.5 years.
But
Not
now, are
inspectors,
you
but
really
security.
retired now, Jack Green?
Well, I don't mind lying a little bit. Yeah, I'm supposed to be.
But you're still involved in lots of things in the community. What do y'all do to keep yourselves busy at this time, Ruby?
Oh, that's no problem.
We visit a lot of older people, and he just always doing something. You know, there's so many of them that are widows, and there's so many things that he can do for them. He loves doing those things. He'll fix something that's broken, or if they need to go somewhere, we'll take them, or whatever. We just try to, well, it's just a joy to do it. We enjoy it very much. We really do. We take food to a lot of people. We just do whatever that we feel like. And we're training right now to work in the little community thing out here on 303. We're
Yes,
gonna work.
community service that Gaylord
Right.
Hayes sponsors
Right.
with the church.
That's right. We're training to work in that. So.
I think you all are a very special pair in Grand Prairie, Texas, and it's just been so wonderful to interview you all. And I'm sorry that Betty Green Micas could not be with us today, but we might not have had time to interview her with all this good stuff that we've had to talk about.
Well, I've enjoyed it so much. I've never been interviewed before, so I don't know if I was very good people or not.
You were, and we want to thank you, Jack Green, you and beautiful Ruby, for being on our show and being a part of our history today.
Well, we loved it. We loved it very much.
It's our pleasure.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.
Right.